Welcome back to Aristeia 99. We're doing a double header this week. And this week, we're going to be talking about Moonchild. So, Moonchild is the second character of the Transforming Double Trouble expansion. Oh my gosh, she is kind of crazy. This is going to be great. So, much like Lei Gong, she has two forms. Her initial form is the dog face form, in which she looks like a human beagle, I guess. Then she has the dog warrior form, where she looks like a werewolf. Pretty awesome, two sides. So like Lei Gong, she will transform in the middle of the game. She is different in Lei Gong in that it is a sequential transformation. Much like if you start pushing around Bruce Banner, he's pretty awesome on his own for some reasons. But get him mad, he turns into the Hulk. Moonchild is pretty much the same way, actually. If you go to aristeiathegame.com and look up her profile, they actually have a Hulk homage as her initial quote. But we're going to go in this one in order. Both sides are kind of different. And you can't voluntarily transform, with one exception, but we'll get into that later. So as a dog face, Moonchild has initiative of 4, movement of 4, energy of 5, health at 2. This is not as bad as it seems. The reason is, and we're just going to skip down to Transmutation really quick. This is critical. After you receive damage, but before being sent to the infirmary. Now this timing is very, very important. Just because you receive damage, you don't necessarily go to the infirmary. So if she receives 1 point of damage, that's not going to trigger this. You have to have received damage and be going to the infirmary for this to work. She is a little complex. There will be errata at the end of the video, and links to it in the description. Anyhow, after you receive damage, but before being sent to the infirmary, remove all tokens and markers from this character card and flip to the dog warrior form. This automatic skill cannot be silenced. That is a hard counter to Oberon, and frankly, without that, she could not work as a character. She would just go squish, and that's it. So you don't have to worry about an opposing Oberon silencing this ability and preventing you from transforming. You do have to worry about, essentially, not receiving damage. It's a very strange problem for this game, but no, that is literally the biggest problem a Moonchild player can have, is not receiving any damage. And it happened to me when I was playing against Keep a Hooligan, and it's a long story. Anyways, her defense is a blue. Not great. It's not a black. But again, you don't necessarily want to not take damage with Moonchild. Likewise, her brawl roll is a blue and a black. That's actually reasonably decent. And her disengage is an orange, so if she needs to get away, she's got a not bad chance of it happening. On top of that, her character switch is nullify a shield from your opponent's roll if your target is within range 1 to 3. Now this tells you right off the bat that she kind of wants to be close. But she's also a little more offensive. Again, with this, with the dog face form of Moonchild, you actually do want to take damage so you can Hulk out. So this actually reverses the normal risk-reward you would actually have with her in some regards. It's like, okay, I'm going to take away your defense by removing my defense, and more of my offense will get through. That's pretty nice. On top of that, you're more likely to take damage and then transform. The reason you would not want to transform, though, is actually going to come down to a little bit more control over yourself, but we'll get into that in the dog warrior form. She's got 2 attacks. She's got the Teasy and Tomahawks for 3 action points. It's a red, it's an orange, it's a yellow. This is actually a pretty nice attack. It's range 1/1. The yellow, because she doesn't use the bangs for any of her switches, is just a nice way to add a little more damage, maybe, but not too much. So that's actually pretty cool. And it gives her a versatile a die, and she could get shields on that. So there is that. Then she has a 2 energy attack called Thrown Tomahawks. It's an orange, it's a blue, and it's range 2 to 3. So she's actually got a nice little threat range for a melee character. So if she's up close, she's really good. If she's a little further away, but not much further away, she does have a ranged option. And the blue die on here means you've got a good chance of getting the shields for extra damage, but it's versatile. You can decide, I want to hold on to the defense. That's fair, and there are reasons you might want to do that. But predominantly, it's just a fun way to boost damage, and you could honestly just have there and be real cagey with what you're going to do about it, so you've got that versatility. Inner Beast is her first passive ability. After the resolution of a combat roll involving yourself, you may inflict 1 damage on yourself. So if she has been in a fight, whether she's the attacker or she's a defender, you can push her over the edge, or if she doesn't take any damage at all, take at least 1. This is a very important part of her game, in that you could say if the attack, you don't take quite enough damage, you could go ahead and just bump, and do that twice. You go to her dog warrior form. The trick with this is again, we've established her range, effective threat range here is 1 right next to her, or up to through 3 away. So this kind of gives you an idea of what she's going to be vulnerable to. Dazzling reduces her threat range down to 1/1, which is not ideal for a melee character in any circumstances, but it's not crippling. So that effectively removes throw tomahawks. You could also immobilize her. And should you immobilize her, she can't move. Her threat range, being what it is, means that if she can't necessarily go chasing targets if she can't move. She's not a ranged character. You could try using Contender if you really wanted to trigger this attack. And certainly in that regard, you'd be essentially paying for wounds. If that's the situation you're in, go for it. That's actually a fairly legitimate use of Contender, but you can't be dazzled to use that version, use it for that purpose. And this is kind of how Keep a Hooligan got to me. He kept on moving around. He used cards that kind of stopped me from attacking, things like that, and I was not able to transform once. It is a possibility. Likewise, unlike Transmutation, this can be silenced. So if you're playing, if there's an Oberon in the game going against Moonchild, silencing this ability would slow down that, limit her options. She would have to get in a fight, but if she can't move and if she can't attack, then you kind of got her for a while. And that's not a place you want the dog face. If she's only irrelevant if she's made irrelevant, and you do want to think about that. Conversely, if you're playing against a Moonchild, keep all these things in mind, but also realize you're throwing a lot of resources at her. That may or may not be a good use of what you can do overall. So don't be so afraid of the werewolf form that you waste all of your opportunity and resources trying to stop her from transforming. Speaking of transforming, there's finally the dog warrior form. You flip it over the blue side, and you get this freaking werewolf. The lore on that's kind of interesting. You should go read that at aristeiathegame.com. And she becomes somewhat horrifying. She is a late blooming character in that regard. So, initiative of 6, very high. Movement of 3. She seems slow until you look at the fact she's got an energy of 6. And she's got a health of 4. Basically, just to clarify this right now, if you wanted to use her for scoring, you possibly could just dedicate, I'm going to run 3, I'm going to run 3, I'm going to run 3. That's 9. And, and again, all the damage was taken off her when she flipped. All the tokens and the markers were removed. So she's kind of coming in with a fresh slate here. And she's coming in with better health. Essentially, you need to dedicate 6 points of damage to take out Moonchild entirely. Which is, again, another reason you may want to look at simply neutering her as opposed to throwing out damage. Her defense is a green and 2 blacks, which is a considerable upgrade from the blue in her dog face form. Especially when you consider her switch, which is nullify a shield from your opponent's roll if your target's within range 1 and 2, costs 1 shield each. But this is also the form that can be sent to the infirmary. It is more risky in this situation to use that, but it is there. Her brawl roll is a green and a blue. When she's next to someone, she wants to stay there, and she wants them to stay there as well. And her disengage is a block and an orange. So she can immediately use her switch to nullify 1 block on the opponent's disengage roll. So that's, if she wants to get somewhere, she's got a better chance of doing so. Really nice. So with Moonchild Dog Warrior form, you've got a 2-point attack. It's Tesium Tomahawks. It is a red, it is an orange, it's a yellow, it's an automatic success. And it's range 1 to 2. So she's not throwing them anymore, but she still has range. I guess she's got, the character is huge, so I guess she's just got really long arms. And on top of that, though, it actually does have switch for a shield and an exclamation point. So not terrible chances of getting it, but I wouldn't necessarily call them great either. You can place yourself adjacent to the target. So if she is one away, there's space, she can do Tesium Tomahawks and then close in and possibly lock them down. The next ability is the one that Keep a Hooligan positively loves, but is also positively frightened of. It's called Total Immunity. Your opponent cannot activate switches when you are the target of their combat rolls. So, oh my gosh, this does put some interesting, an interesting spin on a lot of characters. The big 2 you're probably thinking of, though, are going to be Wild Bill and Musashi. And for them, it does require a little bit of pre-planning and set up with a situation. So for Wild Bill, he would not necessarily want to attack Moonchild first if he's hoping to get his switch. And certainly with the advent of TCOM Sterling Forge, he can get that switch for free. What he needs to do, rather, is have her be the target of the switch's attack, because it's the initial attack, switch, it's going to happen, resolve, But then the trick there is it's a new attack, then that's counted separately. So basically, he does twin pistols, gets a switch, he gets to do it again as a separate activation. It's a different thing. He would not be able to activate the switch attacking her. So basically, get it all out of his system and attack her last, because once you get to her, it's not going any further. The same goes for Musashi. If you want to do a sword attack, that's fine, but attack her last. The moment you attack her, he stops dead in his tracks, and he cannot do the switch anymore. So this is really particularly bad for Musashi, just because that melee switch is so wonderfully, deliciously powerful. So you do have that to keep in mind. But again, really for any of the characters, but it has to be a combat roll. So Bachman can go ahead, sample, inoculate, whatever he wants to do, and still put a poison on her because it is not a combat roll. Likewise, Major Luna, using suppressive fire, it's not a combat roll. It's an ability roll, so she could still slow Moonchild down. So whether it's a red ability or a green ability is going to be very relevant here. Next up is kind of the double-edged sword of Dog Warrior form being so awesome, and that is Berserk. So you are not affected by the focus state. If you got characters that hand out focus like Lakshmi, that means for Dog Warrior form, there's no, it's just not good. I believe she can have it, but she wouldn't be able to be affected by it. She wouldn't be able to cash it in. This, I'll go check. There'll be errata at the end of the video and in the description below. And it's one of those things that, as time progresses, go and check back. Go and check back. So that's 1. 2, you cannot gain the benefits of cover. Now you might be saying, well, that's only a black die. Yeah, but that is still a 50-50 chance of getting a block, and it's free. So against a ranged opponent, this is a disadvantage for her. And for the last part of Berserk, at the beginning of the action step of your activation, if there's an enemy within range 1 to 2, line of sight required, you must immediately perform Tesium tomahawks against them, spending the necessary action points. Now, this is basically turns any enemy into prism for that first attack. At the time of this video, the errata states she only has to do it once, because beginning of the action steps, you do that attack, and now it's not the beginning, so you're free to do whatever else you want. This would be a very perverse reason to have a friendly put dazzled on her, just because it would reduce the requirement there to 1-1. She would not have, because there's line of sight requirements. So if she can't see him, she can't attack him. But that, I will almost guarantee, will need to be errated as well, or at least be clarified. So www.aristeiathegame.com. They've got a wiki, they got errata, they got all sorts of good stuff. Moonchild is a kind of a complex character, so and there's a lot that needs to be clarified on her. Put a dazzle on her. If you were to silence something on her, this would be a great thing for a friendly character to impose on her, or steal from someone and put on her. Anyways, but Berserk is the double-edged sword. You need to think about it, you need to account for it, and you need to work with or around it. Now for her tactics. Oh, those cards. There's no escape. I kind of wonder if there was a missing E there. During the action step of Moonchild's activation, place yourself adjacent to an enemy target with a range 1 to 4, no line of sight required. It doesn't matter which state you're in, this is a very scary ability, simply because it's no line of sight required. That is fantastic for whichever, whether she's dog face or dog warrior. Is this no worthy? It depends on who you're attacking. Someone in the scoring zone or is critical in the support role for an opposing team would get that. Would probably get a no to their defense. But we'll see. I love cards that give you those sorts of movement options. Next up is Cruelty. This is going to be a very scary card for a lot of people. During the declaration step of your Tesium Tomahawk's attack. Until the end of the round, Tesium Tomahawks gains the switch, shield, bang. After the resolution step of this attack, perform Tesium Tomahawks against the same target without spending any action points. So, yeah, that's they call it Cruelty for a reason. Both of her states do feature a yellow. You've got a good chance of getting the bang requirement. I would certainly, if possible, try to add in a defensive die, whether you can throw in a black or you throw in a blue, to try and get more of the shields going. If you're trying to max out on this. This is a card that people will be afraid of and they will overreact to, unless they're really good at math. So if you're going to try and hit the switch normally, that is a nice bonus. And certainly this means that you could just do a ton of damage right here and there over phases. Now, this is where what comes up is important is, one, if you're using tactics cards to get the boost, to get the switch, you're spending a lot of resources. You could empty your hand very quickly. You need to be aware of that. Also, it's never guaranteed. So you could spend a lot of tactics cards getting a lot of dice and not really get the best bang for your buck. If you were to do this, I would personally recommend, if she's in dog face or if you have silenced Berserk, getting a focus state on her would help with this. Getting additional defensive dice on there, well, you know your priorities. And Tesium Tomahawks is on both characters. I kind of feel this does a little bit better with the dog face form, simply because with her Tesium Tomahawks being 3, the ability to get 2 attacks in is much more pronounced. It's much more efficient. With her dog warrior form, it's great. It's awesome. Don't get me wrong. The additional range is fantastic. But spending additional energy to try again isn't nearly as bad as her dog face form. If you're right next to them or if you're within range, you can do 3 attacks right off the bat anyways. So yeah, you've got a chance to get up to 6 even, but Moonchild and Dogface can attack once and that's it. So in that regard, I kind of lean towards using this a little more for Dogface Moonchild. I think it'd be less likely to get node and overreacted to, and it's basically the equivalent of 3 free energy with her, which gives her more options. It's more meaningful in that regard. Overwhelming. During the action step of Moonchild's activation, if you have bad eyes, take this card, photocopy of it, and just blow it up. There's a lot of text on here. So for dog face form, until the end of the round, add a yellow die to your agility and gain 1 movement point when you successfully disengage. This is a really nice bonus, actually. I do like that quite a bit. You have a better chance of getting away, and then you get more movement on top of that. Fantastic. Dog Warrior form. This card becomes a little scary. So until the end of the round, add a yellow to your agility and inflict 1 damage to your target when you successfully disengage. Now, you might want to get away and leave them parting present, but if you're willing to risk it, because this is to the end of the round, the Wolf Warrior form of Moonchild already comes with an orange, and already automatically comes with the automatic block to cancel a block. So she's got a reasonable chance of disengaging to begin with. So you add in this card, add in a yellow on top of that, which gives you chances for more shields, more successes, better chance of disengaging. In theory, you could encircle an enemy and basically inflict damage every time you do. A character like Maximus is going to have a very good brawl roll, so your chances of actually killing him with this are not so great. But there are a ton of other characters that, especially lighter characters with low health and not as good defense versus, not as good as a brawl roll. You could use this to simply move by them in maybe a little less optimal path, and you're going, from point A to point B, but along the way, you just took out Gata, or you just took out Hexer, or 1, 2, 3, oh, there went Pavarti, goodbye. You would want to measure out your movement to make sure you've actually got enough movement to do everything you want to do. But certainly with Dogface having the potential for up to 9 movement, it is a feasible idea. If you're going to use it in this regard, I would, depending on what their brawl roll is, I would probably want to boost this a little bit in addition to the yellow. But this is a distinct possibility, to be perfectly honest, for using offense in a way to get uncontested damage, which should be slightly horrifying because it is. Finally, we have Forced Transmutation. At the beginning of the preparation step of Moonchild's activation, only Dogface form. Remove all damage and state tokens from your character card. Flip your character card. She now becomes a dog. She goes from Dogface to Dog Warrior. Impose a -2 energy on yourself. Yeah, this is kind of a scary card. This is a card that you'd use if nobody wants to play with me, I need to transform, or I just came back off the bench, transform. If you're using, say, a character like Gaia or Hexer who can manipulate movement, so Gaia could just take her and pop up in the enemy's deployment zone, and all of a sudden they've got a rabid werewolf in their midst. That's terrifying. It should scare the hell out of you. Keep a Hooligan likes to do this already with Gaia and Valkyrie. What a jerk. I would do it myself. I just haven't done that team combination. Having the -2 state on you is not that big a deal when you consider that she, in the Dog Warrior form, already had 6 energy. So going down to 4 is not that big of a deal. And it comes off quickly enough when you really think about it, and her attack's cheap at only 2 energy anyways. If you are to do this, I would absolutely be ready for this to get node. If they're using TCOM, I would absolutely expect them to look at your deck and stick it down at the bottom. Conversely, you may want to put this to the top and keep it in your hand. This is actually a very good card. Yes, it does have a drawback. The usage of it's going to be situational. It's less valuable if you can't just spring it on someone. But no, I like that card a lot. But don't discount her dog face form. Learn to get the mileage out of that. You're going to be using that every game anyways. Just keep that in your pocket. Just keep it right there. That's Moonchild. Again, as promised, here's the errata. And like, comment, subscribe. And we'll see you with Bixie next time because, my gosh, I'm putting her off. Talk to you soon and play more Aristeia.